Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is the first lecture in English Writing 103. As you can see on the first slide, this is the name of the course and the number 103, and my name is Waleed Othman. The title of lecture 1 is Give Information About Yourself. In this lecture, I'll be teaching you how to give or make simple sentences about yourself. This lecture consists of the following components. Component number 1 is the vocabulary. Under the vocabulary, we're going to study classroom words with articles, such as a student, a teacher, the board, etc. We also have the grammar component, adjectives, statements with verb to be, and subject pronouns. And finally, we have strategies and conventions. And today, our focus is on capitalization in sentences and proper nouns. This is an introduction to this lecture and, in fact, to many other lectures. This lecture starts with a reading text. The text is then analyzed for the major points included in the previous slide. So we will study the vocabulary, the grammar, and the conventions we mentioned in the previous slide through the reading text. Most parts that we are going to discuss are followed by references to web pages. Students should and need to refer to those web pages for further study. And you will see examples of these today. Let's start then with the reading text. Let's read it together because this is our main focus, and we're going to analyze everything in it later on. The reading text is about a student. His name is Francisco Garcia. So, Francisco Garcia is a student. He is 15 years old. He is from Los Angeles, California. Mrs. Moore is his English teacher. Mrs. Moore is a good teacher. She is kind and friendly. Francisco and Mrs. Moore are in the classroom now. They are in an English class. They are busy. Francisco is at a desk. Mrs. Moore is not at a desk. She is at the board. The classroom is not a big room. It is a small room. It is clean and colorful. The classroom is in a large building. So now, if you look at this reading passage, it has several sentences, more than 10 sentences. We will discuss them now through our exercises. First, let's start with capitalization. Usually, or of course always, we start a sentence with a capital letter. So capitalization for sentence beginning. Look at this example. Francisco Garcia is a student. You notice that these sentences are taken from the reading text. So, Francisco Garcia is a student. He is 15 years old. He is from Los Angeles. You can see that F, the letter F in Francisco is capital letter. Why? Because this is the first word in a sentence. Also in the second sentence, he is 15 years old. The letter H is also capitalized. It's capital H. And the last sentence, he's from Los Angeles, California, is also capitalized. Another example. She is kind and friendly. Look at the first word in the sentence. She, the letter S, is capitalized. Of course, don't forget that we have a full stop at the end of each sentence. One more example. They are in an English class. They, capital T. They are in an English class. And a final example, it is clean and colorful. You see, it, the I in it is capital letter. Again, these sentences are taken from the reading passage. We also capitalize proper nouns. Look at these examples. We have 3 sentences here. The first one, Francisco Garcia is a student. Look at the name Francisco. It starts with a capital F. Also the name Garcia, Francisco Garcia. These are proper names or proper nouns. They are names of people, so they must be capitalized. The second sentence is from Los Angeles, California. He is from Los Angeles, California. You can see Los, capital L, Angeles, capital A, California, capital C. So Los Angeles is the name of a city, California is the name of a state. So it's like when you say Dammam, Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, all these nouns must be capitalized. The last example, Mrs. Moore is his English teacher. You see the first word, Mrs., this is a title, like Mr., Mrs., Doctor. All these are capitalized when they come with nouns. Of course, they must come with nouns. So Mrs. Moore, capital M in Mrs., capital M in Moore, is his English teacher. English, the name of a language. Arabic, Spanish, German. All these are nouns, proper nouns. So they must be written, or they must start with a capital letter. Now, this is the part I told you about at the beginning of this lecture. Now, we have finished or already talked about capitalization. Now, it's your turn to go online. Here on this page, you can see a web address. This web address contains an exercise on capitalization and more about capitalization. So you should go there, visit this website, and do the exercise. And by the way, you can check your answers on the same page so that you can learn from your mistakes. Now, the second thing, the vowels. What are the vowels in English? You know, the letters in English, there are 26 letters in English. 5 of these letters are called vowels. So we have the vowels A and E, I, O, and U. These are the 5 vowels in English. Now, all the other letters are called consonants. 21 letters. B, C, D, F, G, etc. All these are consonant. Now, why are we talking about these things? Because we will be talking about the articles in English. The articles. In English there are 3 articles. Let's see them one by one and, of course, with examples. The first one is the indefinite article. The indefinite article a. It's like a tanween in Arabic. The second one is also an indefinite article, but it's the indefinite article an. Also, it's like a tanween for the nakira, indefinite. And the last one is the definite article, the. Al-Ta'rif. We use it when we talk about definite or specific things. Let's take these one by one. First, the indefinite article a. You can see here, use a before a singular one. Indefinite, not definite, noun that starts with a consonant, not with a vowel. Examples: a book means one book. A student, one student. A teacher, one teacher. And a board, one board. You see here, we are not talking about a specific student or teacher or book. Look at the two examples bottom of this slide. I bought a book. Now, is this sentence correct? Yes, it is correct, because you see, I bought a book. Kitaban. I bought book, the other sentence, is not correct, because the indefinite article is not there. The second indefinite article is an. We use an before a singular indefinite noun that starts with a vowel, not a consonant. Examples: an English class. English class. We're talking about one English class. English starts with E vowel. You can see it. It's in green. An apple. An apple. An elephant. All these examples start with vowels. Again, we have two more examples here. Salim ate an apple. Is this sentence correct? Yes, it is correct, because we're talking about one apple and we have the indefinite article an. But the last sentence here, Salim ate apple, is incorrect. Okay. Now, the last article is the definite article, ta'rif. Use the before singular or plural. Definite nouns, not indefinite nouns. So we can say the teacher or the teachers, the classroom, the classrooms, and the sun. Of course, we have only one sun. Now look at the examples given here. The first one, the sun is shining today. The sun is shining today. This sentence is, of course, correct. We're talking about the sun. There is only one sun, so it's definite. The second sentence, sun is shining today. No, this is incorrect. It's not correct, because the sun here is not defined. A sun is shining today. This is incorrect. A sun, it means one of many suns. No, there is only one sun. Now let's look at this exercise. We'll do it together. We have 5 sentences. This is from page 4 in your book. Francisco is what? Student, blank, a or an or that. What do you think? Francisco is a student. A student. Number 2, Mrs. Moore is teacher. Okay, Mrs. Moore is a teacher. Example 3, Francisco and Mrs. Moore are in English class. English starts with vowel. An English class. Number 4, Francisco and Mrs. Moore are in classroom now. We are talking about one definite classroom. So, in the classroom. In the classroom. Number 5, Mrs. Moore is at board. There is only one board in the classroom. One board. So, Mrs. Moore is at the board. Okay. Now here is another website for articles. There's an exercise on this website, and here you can do the exercise and check your mistakes, check your answers, and correct your mistakes. You can learn a lot from these websites. Please go and visit these websites. Number 3, adjectives. Adjectives. Number 1, adjectives before nouns. We use adjectives before nouns. Look at this example. Mrs. Moore is a good teacher. Mrs. Moore is a good teacher. Now, teacher is a noun. Good is the adjective. Where is the adjective? It's before the noun. Mrs. Moore is a. Notice, a good teacher. So, a, adjective good plus noun teacher. Another example. The classroom is a small room. We're talking about the room, noun, small, adjective. So the classroom is a small room. Okay. Now, we also use adjectives after nouns, not only before nouns, but here we need a verb to be, like is, and, are, was, and were. Look at the examples. Example 1. Mrs. Moore is kind and friendly. You see, we don't have a noun after the adjectives. Mrs. Moore is kind and friendly. We have kind, adjective, and friendly, another kind, another friendly. Number 2, Francisco and Mrs. Moore are busy. Are, verb to be, are. Busy, adjective. The noun is Francisco and Mrs. Moore. Example 3, the classroom is clean and colorful. What is clean and colorful? The classroom. The classroom is clean and colorful. Two adjectives. Here is another web page for you to study about adjectives and to do an exercise also. So here also you can learn more about adjectives, and you can do an exercise, check your answers, and correct your mistakes. Part 4 of this lecture is the subject pronouns. Subject pronouns. You see, we have 7 subject pronouns in English. They are he, she, it, I, we, they, and you. Let's start with the first two subject pronouns, he and she. He and she. Example 1. Francisco Garcia is a student. You see, these sentences are also from the reading passage. He, who is he? Francisco Garcia. He is 15 years old. He is from Los Angeles. He also Francisco Garcia. He is from Los Angeles, California. So this is a pronoun. Another example, this time about Mrs. Moore, the teacher. Mrs. Moore is a good teacher. Mrs. Moore is a good teacher, and she's a woman. So she is kind and friendly. Who is she? We are talking about Mrs. Moore. Now, the pronoun they also. Look at this sentence. Francisco and Mrs. Moore are in the classroom now. They are in an English class. They. Who are they? Francisco and Mrs. Moore. So when you say Francisco and Mrs. Moore, 2 people or 3 people or more, the pronoun is they. They are in an English class. They are busy. The pronoun it. The classroom is not a big room. It is a small room. It. We are talking about the classroom, non-living. The book, it. The desk, the board, it. It is clean and colorful. So we use it for singular, non-living things. Or inanimate, in fact, because we use it for animals also. So when you say a dog, you say it. A cat, it. Okay. Here we have 2 web pages for your further study about personal pronouns. Please go there and do the exercises, and you will learn a lot from this. Now, how do we contract the subject pronouns and the verb to be? Look at this. He is, he's, contraction. She is, she's. It is, it's. It's. They are, they're. We are, we're. I am. You are, you're. So these are contractions. Let's look at these examples. Francisco is a teacher? No. We know that Francisco is a student. Francisco is not a teacher. Negative. Is not a teacher. What's he? He's a student. He's a student. Mrs. Moore is a bad teacher. Mrs. Moore is a bad teacher? No. Mrs. Moore is not a bad teacher. She is a good teacher. She's a good teacher. Contraction. More examples. The classroom is a big room. We know that the classroom is not big. You see, the classroom is not a big room. It's a small room. Francisco and Mrs. Moore are in a small building. No. Francisco and Mrs. Moore are not in a small building. They're in a big building. It means they are there in a big building. Now, look at this table, please. You can see that this table has 3 columns. The first column is about Francisco. All the sentences in the first column are about Francisco. Now, the second column is about Mrs. Moore. All the sentences here are about Mrs. Moore. And the last part is about the classroom. You can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences about the classroom. Okay, we call this categorizing. Categorizing. Okay. Now, let's look at this as a question. Look at this table, and the title is Irrelevant Ideas. Irrelevant ideas. And ideas that do not belong. We have some sentences here, and the title is The Classroom. Let's read the sentences. The classroom is not a big room. Moore is a good teacher. It is a small room. It is clean and colorful. The classroom is in a large building. You can see here we have one sentence which is in red. Moore is a good teacher. This sentence is irrelevant. It does not belong here. It should be written in another paragraph or somewhere else. So it's incorrect. Why? Because the sentence is irrelevant. So we need to cross out this sentence. You see, the second version of the paragraph, the classroom is not a big room. It is a small room. It is clean and colorful. The classroom is in a large building. 4 sentences, and all of them are about the classroom. Okay. Another question about the irrelevant ideas. Find the irrelevant idea. We have here some sentences. Which of them is irrelevant? Sentence 1, Francisco Garcia is a student. Sentence 2, he is 15 years old. Sentence 3, she is kind and friendly. Sentence 4, he is from Los Angeles, California. And the last sentence, Francisco is at the desk. Now, you see that these are 4 sentences, numbered sentences. One of them is not about Francisco. Only one of them. Which one? Okay, look at sentence number 3. She is a woman. We are talking about the teacher, not Francisco. Then sentence 3 is irrelevant. It should not be here. Now look at this table. We call this an informational survey. Some information about a person. Look at the table here. The first one, first name. First name is Khalid. Last name, for example, Al-Hamad. Nickname, Abu Saad, or any other nickname. Age, how old he is. 22 years old. City, state, or country. He is from Dammam, Saudi Arabia. You see Dammam, comma, Saudi Arabia. His English teacher is Mr. Faisal. The description of his teacher, he is kind and funny. His teacher is kind and funny. School name, the name of the school, King Faisal University. The school address, where is this school? Al-Ahsa, Saudi Arabia, 31982. This is the postal code. And you can include the street or the building number or anything about the address. School description. It's big, clean, and modern. Adjectives. Big, clean, and modern. Now, we will take this information about Khalid and write it in sentences, in a paragraph. Look at this slide. You can see here we have sentences about Khalid. The first sentence, Khalid Al-Hamad is a student. He is 22 years old. He is from Dammam, Saudi Arabia. Mr. Faisal is his teacher. Mr. Faisal is a good teacher. He is kind and funny. My school name is King Faisal University. My school address is Al-Ahsa, etc. Now, it's your turn to write about yourself. You can write about yourself the same information: first name, last name, nickname, age, etc. Now, what are you going to write next to number 5? Next to number 5, city, state. Are you going to write, for example, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, or Saudi Arabia, Jeddah? You start with the city, Jeddah, comma, Saudi Arabia. Okay. Now, we are going to do some practice, and then we will end this lecture after we do the exercises. Now, we have some sentences here. All of them are multiple choice. You are going to choose the best substitute for the underlined words. If the sentence is correct, choose make no change. Look at the first one. Mr. Jones is a English teacher. A English teacher, underlined. Is this correct or not correct? Look at the substitutes. A, English teacher. B, an English teacher. C, a teacher English. And D, make no change. What do you think? Is it C, a teacher English? No, because English is an adjective for teacher here. The adjectives should come before. Now, is it D, make no change? Of course not, because the sentence, Mr. Jones is a English teacher, is surely incorrect. The answer is B. The sentence should be Mr. Jones is an English teacher. Question 2. Jamal is colorful. Jamal is a boy or a man, a person. Colorful, you cannot say that a person is colorful. This adjective is not used for people. What do you say? Jamal is student. Jamal is kind. Jamal is teacher. Or make no change. Can you say Jamal is student? No. Jamal is a student. Can you say Jamal is teacher? Also, Jamal is a teacher. So the answer is Jamal is kind. The answer is B. Number 3. Mrs. Thomas is a good teacher. He is very nice. What's wrong with he, the underlined? Is it wrong or is it correct? We are talking about Mrs. Thomas, a woman. He is a man. What do you use here? It or she or his? We cannot use it because we are talking about a person. We cannot use his because his is not a subject pronoun. His is not a subject pronoun here. We need a subject pronoun for a woman, which is she. For Faisal and Ahmad is nice and kind. What do you think is wrong with this sentence? Faisal and Ahmad is nice. Is it Faisal and Ahmad are? Faisal and Ahmad is not. They is, or make no change. Okay? Now, Faisal and Ahmad, two people, we cannot use is. We should use are here. So the answer is A. The answer is A. Sentence 5. Omar is from Dammam, Saudi Arabia. The whole sentence. What's wrong with the whole sentence? Look at the sentence. Here the question is about capitalization. Omar, Dammam, Saudi Arabia, all these are nouns, proper nouns. They should be capitalized. Look at A, Omar, capital, Dammam, capital, Saudi, capital, Arabia, small. So this is not the correct answer. B, Omar, capital, Dammam, small, Saudi, small, Arabia, capital. Again, this is not the correct answer. The answer is D. Omar is from Dammam, Saudi Arabia. So we have here 5 questions about the subjects or the topics that we studied today. Now, here is some information for you to help you find the book. These are names of bookshops in Dammam and Al-Ahsa and also in other cities in the kingdom where you can or may find the book. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time, inshallah.